Henry VIII's quest for a male heir plunged England into great religious turmoil and had a huge effect on the population. Henry is remembered for being a king who had 6 wives, 2 of whom met their ends inside the walls of the Tower of London, being beheaded. Henry greatly wanted a son, and despite getting his wish when Edward VI was born to Jane Seymour, his 3rd wife, he had actually produced a son before. Despite being illegitimate, Henry Fitzroy was the king's son, and was shrouded in great titles and affection from the king, and some actually believe that Henry VIII was actually preparing his illegitimate son to become his successor. However, tragically, he died at a young age. Today we look at the tragic death of Henry VIII's illegitimate son, Henry Fitzroy, and remember to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Henry Fitzroy was born in June 1519, and was the son of Henry VIII and his mistress, Elizabeth Bessie Blount. His mother was one of the ladies-in-waiting to Queen Catherine of Aragon, and the king had an affair with her during his marriage to Catherine. He was given the title Fitzroy, meaning son of the king, which had been used for illegitimate children before. The child was conceived when Catherine was approaching her confinement with one of Henry's children, a daughter who was stillborn. Bessie Blount was described as beautiful and was a skilled musician and dancer, being a frequent player at court, but during her pregnancy, to avoid scandal, she was sent to a priory. When Henry was alerted to the news that he had in fact a son, despite being illegitimate, the king was over the moon and ecstatic with this. He visited the young boy a number of times, but his mother would never return to court. Henry organised a child to be christened, and Cardinal Wolsey was present and was named Fitzroy's godfather, showing how high profile the king's illegitimate son's birth was. Henry then abandoned his discretion and proudly showed off his newborn son to everyone at court, and he acknowledged the child as his own, and he was very proud of the child he had conceived to his mistress. This was very different, as previous kings had shunned their illegitimate children, but Henry went against the grain. Fitzroy had a rather affluent upbringing, and was part of the royal nursery, it's believed, and he was also present at court. It's assumed that Henry visited him regularly, and he lived in different households as well. At the age of 6, he was made a Knight of the Garter by the king, and was also elevated to the peerage, with Henry Fitzroy becoming the Duke of Richmond and Somerset, and also the Earl of Nottingham. He was given these titles in a huge ceremony, where he arrived by barge, and came with a group of knights and gentlemen in the procession. The 6-year-old child then knelt before his father the king, and it was the first time in 400 years an illegitimate child had been elevated to the peerage. The huge ceremony and offices held by Fitzroy showed Henry's faith in him and love for him. It was unheard of for an illegitimate child to be given all of this, and it's considered that the king believed he could possibly have Fitzroy instilled as his successor to the throne. This would have disinherited Mary I, his eldest child at the time. The title of the Earl of Richmond had even been held by Henry VII, the child's grandfather, showing the ties that the illegitimate child had to the history of the nation. It's believed Henry may have done this to possibly strengthen the claims he had to the throne. He was raised like a royal prince, being described as a most handsome, urbane and learned young gentleman, very dear to the king on account of his good manners, and he was said to have looked like his father. He was even made the Lord Lieutenant of Ireland in June 1529, and it was even debated to make him the King of Ireland, but this was eventually rejected. The debate as to who Fitzroy would marry was taken very seriously, and it was suggested in a bizarre twist that he should marry his half-sister Mary, to strengthen his claim to the throne, and to create a super Tudor successor. However, this would have led to a significant amount of royal inbreeding. Henry, considering this, even appealed to the Pope to give his consent and permission, and they agreed for this to go ahead, with the half-siblings possibly getting married. However, at the age of 14, Fitzroy married Mary Howard, the daughter of Thomas Howard, the 3rd Duke of Norfolk, which was arranged by Anne Boleyn, Henry's second wife, as a way of establishing her own family with further links to the throne, and also with Anne gaining more favour for the Duke of Norfolk. Their marriage was never consummated, and the young boy had everything. It was said that inside the walls of the Tower of London, Henry Fitzroy had been sent as a royal witness to watch the gruesome and bloody beheading of Queen Anne Boleyn. As Anne stood on the scaffold to make a speech, Fitzroy stood and listened before he saw with his own eyes Henry VIII's second wife's head being struck off by a swordsman. It's believed though that despite the big titles and prestige he was given, he was a rather sickly child. It was written that before he died, Fitzroy had been sick for some time, and that he was ill with consumption. This condition today is linked to tuberculosis and issues with the lungs. It was noted that during public appearances months before he died, he did not show any signs of ill health. Henry VIII, who dreamed of having a healthy and strong son, was beginning to come to terms that his illegitimate boy was becoming rather ill. On the 22nd of July 1536, Fitzroy died at St James's Palace, where he had been made comfortable and attended on by the royal doctors. There have been several theories put forward about his death. Some historians believe that he may have died from the same condition that killed his uncle Prince Arthur, Henry VIII's eldest brother, who also suffered with sweating sickness and coughing issues. Arthur also died at a young age and was the heir apparent, and it's considered that they may have had the same genetic condition that led to their young deaths. It's also been suggested that at the time in Britain there was a bout of pneumonic plague spreading quickly across the nation, and because Henry Fitzroy was buried very quickly, it's considered that to avoid the plague spreading, he was interred very quickly to prevent the spread. It's clear, however, there was a significant lung problem that killed Henry Fitzroy. The king was gutted by the loss of his illegitimate son, and he handed over control of the funeral to the Duke of Norfolk. As mentioned, Fitzroy was buried quickly, and there was no state funeral, and today he rests inside of St Michael's Church in Framlingham, and his wife was interred in the tomb later when she died. Fitzroy was only 17 when he did die. The death of Henry Fitzroy is an interesting one. It's compelling to consider whether the king actually wished for his successor to be his illegitimate son. If Edward VI had not been born, then it is possible that Henry would have named Fitzroy as his successor, and this would have changed the face of English history forever. Once again, thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.